Hello everyone and welcome to His Author's Voice, and I am the author Jack Sanger. I was born in India, but I was brought up near Newcastle. And the other day I was checking about UFOs in Northumberland and surprisingly found a litany of them. Well, a litany of supposed sightings. So it led me to write this story. I hope you enjoy it. The UFO. Down. In stories we are brought up with the notion that the act of going down is synonymous with meeting the macabre, the unseen assailant, the demon, the alien monster, always down into darkness, always somehow vulnerable, yet curiosity getting the better of us. It goes back to our earliest conceptions of death, down to the last boat ride over the River Styx. Up is light, golden and nourishing, where the gods smile. Down is into the devil's waters. I'm a psychiatrist, so the symbolism of up and down attended me from day one of my training. Well, such images came with a rush across my inner eye this morning. Am I fortunate to be able to relay them to you? You be the judge. I bought this place unseen at an auction a month ago, only photographs in the usual brochure to guide me. It's a stone wreck of a building in its own private little section of woodland. Roof slates missing, windows all broken, front door on one hinge, an interior of fragments hinting at what may have been. But it does have a walled garden with sturdy double doors to keep out casual trespassers. I say garden. It is an overgrown habitat for all of nature's creatures. Being isolated and tranquil should have given it an allure, something the locals would appreciate as much as city romantics. But there were no bids from anyone in the area. I intended it as a project to compensate for the stresses of psychiatry, and its eerie reputation only added to its mysteries as far as I was concerned. Reputation? Mysteries? Well, the local newspaper produced a timely article about this part of Northumberland. Various sightings of UFOs have apparently been common, vouchsafed by upstanding members of the community like vicars, doctors and teachers. Mostly domed craft with green undercarriages. The earliest reports from the 1940s, when a local man said he was abducted by small grey, filthy creatures. Anyway, on my way to this place, I stopped off at a petrol station about 5 miles away. Of course, I mentioned that I'd just bought Mirewood House. The white-haired woman nodded and didn't say anything. "It's got a reputation, I hear," said I, smiling. "It does," she replied non-committedly. "Ghosts?" I ventured. "More likely something else. I've seen a beam of green light above the forest where the house is. Loads of times. Used to go that way when I was a kid. Nobody does now. Scary place. Good luck to you." The deeds arrived last weekend, and this was my first opportunity for a once-over. I declined an introductory tour from the solicitor acting on behalf of the vendors, preferring to commune with the house and garden in solitude. I had a key ring dominated by an enormous iron affair that was probably original to its 500-year-old life. It had been in one family for the first 400 or so, but the bloodline petered out and gave way to a series of owners who never managed to stay more than 10 years. The lock in the garden doors had been oiled, as well as the hinges. The enormous key to them showed signs of use, rust clinging to its edges, but the bow was polished enough from being held. The hinges gave a little squeak, and that was all. I drove inside and closed the doors behind me. I took out my heavy carved snakehead walking stick. Recently beaten vegetation showed the approach from the gates to the front door. I must say I was enamoured by the wildness around me, with its mix of domesticated flowers gone wild and rich bird song. I made my way through the heady scents to where the front door was propped askew. There was room to edge past it. I had a curious frisson of déjà vu which came and went as I entered. It was the shambles that I expected. If there had been anything of value, it had been appropriated. I wandered about, noting changes I would make and work that needed to be done to secure the place. The final area I wanted to inspect was the cellar. On the plans it looked very big, about half the footprint of the house. To my surprise, the door to it was sturdy and strong. Another old but much smaller key fitted the lock. It swung open more or less without protest. I began this account of the morning's events by ruminating on the notion of going down. This was certainly on my mind as I began the descent, lit by my mobile phone. From my current perspective, as I record these events back in my apartment in Newcastle, it now feels as much a descent into my own unconscious as into a stone and mortar chamber. Particularly as the stairs were twice the depth one might have supposed. I counted 20 before my feet touched the flag floor. Little details had added up. The efficient cellar door, the rough-cut granite steps were relatively free from dust and dirt at their centres, much walked upon. The yellow powdery lime plaster on the walls showed signs of being brushed by passing occupants at shoulder height. I tapped my way down. The air wasn't damp or mouldy. It had a curious mix of dust and musk. The musk appearing to come through the walls themselves as though they were alive and imbibing the scents of herbs from the garden outside. I could discern dill and thyme. I saw immediately there was one object that broke the emptiness in the room, but I left that until last for inspection. I tapped the stone flags as I crossed and recrossed the cellar. Everything seemed solid. I finally turned to the curious iron mechanism, about the size of a large mangle, fixed to the centre of the internal wall. There was no rust on it. An iron lever with a wooden handle had a cog at its end, and this locked into a large cog housed inside the apparatus. I leant my stick against the wall and took a grip and started to turn the handle. The cogs moved sweetly round each other, and as they did so, a two-slab section of the floor opened upwards. Fully turned, it revealed more steps leading down. As you might imagine, I more than paused at this juncture. There'd been no mention of the device in the deeds, nor, of course, more chambers under the cellar. Down. Again. I felt a degree of fear, but I felt a greater degree of curiosity. My phone torch was good for another hour. Pointing it down, I could see the steps were a dull, shiny metal. I stepped onto the first one. The result was a shock to my sensibilities. I was momentarily destabilized. It was a moving staircase. My weight triggered it, and I was being taken down at the speed of escalators in the London Underground. Diffused lighting came on in the walls, which also appeared to be metal. I reached the new underground level, and the staircase halted. It gave way to a moving, rubbery walkway, which carried me some distance before stopping at a circular exit into... Well, it's difficult to describe exactly, it being beyond anything I'd encountered in life or in fiction, for that matter. I feel slightly deranged as I write about it. It was a shallow, transparent saucer, perhaps 30 feet in diameter, filled with swirling clouds of green vapour. It eddied right up to where I stood. At the centre of the saucer, the clouds twisted into a vortex that channeled upwards and disappeared into the sky. I tried to step back as the gaseous walls reached around my ankles, but could do nothing to prevent myself being pulled gently down the incline towards the green ascending column. Then, in an exhilarating, chest-tightening moment, I was propelled upwards, momentarily aware of the forest below. The house, the garden, before I slowed to a stop. Inside, well, I'll say it, the UFO dome. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? I'd taken a step further than the vicars, doctors and teacher UFO witnesses. Was I being abducted like the man in the 1940s? The chamber I was in was, well, devoid of any internal technology as far as I could make out, apart from a series of porthole monitors around its circumference. In each one I could see domed craft with green beams connecting them to the ground. Hundreds of them. A screen above my head displayed a recognizable map of the planet and the locations of all the domes around it. Planet Earth. What were they doing to it? To us? This was when they communicated with me. A whispering, non-human, flat-toned voice said, "We are mining operation, but what we are taking from your planet does not affect you or it. It is a constant. You have not yet discovered it. One day, just think of it as a form of pure energy. A fertile, diverse planet like yours is rich in it beyond measure." I found it hard to calibrate until later when I was returned to Earth. I was paralyzed by what was happening. What were they going to do to me? "Be calm. We have what we need from you already." Why didn't you just kidnap me from the garden? Why all the stuff in the cellar? Protocols. We used to abduct and extract without question, but the law changed. Now donors have to present themselves to us of their own free will. It's a matter of setting up a temporary, harmless conduit, something your emotional psychology would be comfortable with. Something that fits into the age of your domestic environment. I'm not sure what happened then, except I was back, standing at the front door of the house again, and all I have just described was tumbling about my head, as in the case of lucid dreaming. And I had a kind of déjà vu sensation. I headed straight down the cellar steps. There were 10 only. In the cellar I found no machinery, just an empty room with my carved, snake-headed walking stick propped against a wall. And so, here I am, writing this. Though for what purpose? A revelation of alien life in the cosmos, or a surreal uncovering of a bizarre psychotic episode in my own unconscious? You be the judge. That was the UFO, and I hope it tickled your fancy. If it did so and you want to hear more stories, there are many, many more on this channel. His Author's Voice by Jack Sanger. If, on the other hand, you prefer to read rather than listen, you can go to my website, www.jacksanger.com, where you'll find novels, plays, short stories to download and read at your leisure. They're free unless you would like to donate. So that's all for now. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.